let's talk about the drill and the impact driver. Look pretty similar. They're both handheld tools, battery powered. Grip them with a hand and use your finger to provide the power for the tool, okay? So what are the differences? Well, they both use a little motor inside, but there are some unique differences that one you would use in case or the other. So the drill is going to be primarily used for drilling holes, as the name indicates, okay? And you'll notice the difference between these two because the drill has what's called this larger end piece on it that's called the chuck, okay? So what it is a variable dimension gripper, okay? If you look in the end here, you'll see right there 3 little fingers, okay? I'm putting on my finger here. These little fingers are like this, okay? And as I tighten the collar on the chuck, I can move those fingers together, or I can loosen it and move those apart. What that allows me to do is to take a drill bit, insert the drill bit into the chuck, okay? And then as I turn that collar, I'm actually tightening those fingers up and gripping that drill bit. So I want to tighten it, and then I want to tighten it until it clicks. Now what I've done is I've put a drill bit into the drill motor. Okay? Now, when I want to loosen it, I'll just turn that collar again, and what that does is it opens those 3 fingers up. Let's see. There's open, and there's closing, okay? I can put any diameter of drill bit that I want in there, so it's a variable. I don't just have to use one particular size. Any of these size of drill bits, any for these size holes, is able to be put into this chuck, okay? So what is the impact driver for, okay? So again, it looks similar, but this is going to be used primarily for driving screws, not for drilling holes, for driving screws. Okay, so this one's a little bit different. This one has this little chuck portion right here, but the only thing it will accept is this 1/4-inch drive hex tool, okay? And we have a variety of different sizes. Okay, these are some of the bits that are in this case. So to put this one in, you simply insert the bit into the chuck, and it's gripped in there. And then to remove it, I'm just going to take my fingers, I'm going to pinch that little black collar there, and I'm going to pull up. And you can see I'm just moving that collar up and down like that. So to insert it, I just press it in. And then to remove it, I just pull up, and then I can remove it. So once it's in there pretty good. And just pulling up on that collar will remove it. So what are some of the different kinds of bits? We'll do that in another video. But you can see here that I have one that is a star shape and one that is a Phillips type bit, okay? And there are the matching screws, Phillips and Torx bit, or star-shaped bit, Torx. Okay, so if I'm going to drive the screw with this tool, I'll need a battery and I'll need a bit. So I'm going to take my Phillips bit, number 2 Phillips, I'm going to insert it in. I'm going to grab a battery, slide the battery in, okay? Now, when I want to use this tool, I'm going to press this trigger. It's going to begin turning that bit, okay? This also has the feature of the LED lights, so you can see the light, what you're working on, okay? This tool also has a forward and reverse. So if I want to go forward, I'm looking for that little arrow right there on this side or this side. And it basically is going to push in or out. Pushing it in. Okay. Look for the arrow, and if the arrow is pointing in the direction forward, that means it's going to turn the screw inward. If I want to reverse it, I'm going to look for that arrow that's going backward, okay? The arrow is going toward the back of the drill, that means I'm going to be removing the screw, okay? So this has a forward and a reverse, and the trigger controls the speed. All right, now, what makes the impact unique and why I keep calling it an impact, okay? You say, well, it doesn't just turn Let's just squeeze the trigger and it's turning, right? It's not just simply rotational motion. It is until it reaches resistance. Once it reaches resistance, it actually makes a hammering action, okay? So I'll show you that in a minute, but basically, instead of just turning the screw, instead of just turning it slowly in a rotational motion, once it meets resistance, it's going to start hammering in a twisting motion. Bam, 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 bam. So I'm actually turning in a little impacting motion. Okay, so let me zoom you in down here. Okay. And here's the tool. Here's the screw. Now, a couple things that are very important that I want to do. Keep my finger off the trigger until I'm ready to use it. I want to make sure that this is in a straight line. Okay? So I never want to have the bit at an angle to the screw. This should be one linear line, continuous line throughout. Okay? If I have it at an angle, I'm going to get what's called stripping. I want to keep this in a straight line so that it provides a better driving force. Okay? Now, I'm going to put the screw where I want to start it. I'm going to put everything in a straight line. The next thing that's very important is that I put some downward pressure onto the impact driver with my opposite hand, okay? So I don't just want to do it one-handed, or I don't want to do it like that. I want to put pressure down. Why do I do that? Well, because if you think about it, as this screw is turning, it's going into the wood. So it's trying to run away from the driver, right? So if I start turning this, it's going to start going this direction. So I want to keep the driver going after it, right? So by putting pressure on it here, as this screw starts to turn into the wood, this driver is following it, okay? So put the screw in firmly. I want to make sure I'm in a straight line. Downward pressure. Number 3, I want to give little short bursts until I get a lot of good practice at this, okay? So I don't want to just hold the trigger down all the way down, okay? I want to give some short bursts until I have good control over it. So I'm going to push down. I'm going to give a little short burst. Okay? Now, you heard some pure rotation there, but now you're going to hear the impacting part. So the screw has gotten partway into the wood. It's met some resistance. It's getting more difficult to turn. And so now you'll hear that impacting noise. You can almost see the motion in there if you look closely, that it's actually making small incremental impacting turns, okay? And then I want to continue to drive it down, continue pushing downward, keeping in a straight line, until I've just made it flush with the surface, okay? I don't have to turn it too deep. Now, if I want to remove that screw, remember that little switch here. So I'm going to push in on this to reverse it. And then again, I need to make sure I'm in a straight line, and I need to keep a little bit of pressure on it. And then I'm going to, again, use short bursts to bring it back outward again. Okay, good. If I hear this, a noise like that, you can see I'm not getting, the screw isn't in line, right? So I'm going to wear out the tip of my drill bit. So I want to avoid doing that. Always keep nice, good pressure in there and in a straight line. Okay. If I want to change bits and I want to go to a different bit, I'm going to simply remove that one. Now I have the star bit or Torx bit, and pay special attention to these because these come in different sizes, okay? Talk about that in a bit later. But this is a T25, so I make sure that it matches the screw. Should be a tight fit. If it's not, you have the wrong bit. But this one operates the same way. I'm going to line that up, make sure that it's in a forward position. I'm going to start the screw, make sure it got a good start, push downward, and drive the screw in. Okay. So that's the impact driver, all right? So let's try the drill. Suppose I want to drill a hole. I'm going to grab the drill instead with the chuck that has an infinite adjustment. I'm going to open that up with one thumb. I'm going to put the bit in there. I'm going to kind of guide the bit carefully so that it's centered in those fingers. I want to avoid getting it caught in there at an angle. So as I'm tightening the chuck, I'm slowly making sure that that is centered in those three fingers. I want it centered in the middle. Okay. And then you'll want to listen for that click and make sure that you tighten it all the way. So you'll hear one big click and then maybe several smaller clicks until it stops moving. Okay, now I've got the drill bit in there, nice and tight. Grab my battery, insert the battery, and now I'm ready to drill. This drill, just like the impact driver, has a forward and reverse switch, okay? So if I want to drill inward, I want to make sure that that drill arrow is facing in the direction that I want to drill. So if I want to drill a hole, I need to make sure the arrow that's pressed in facing that direction. I can look at this one, and I can tell it's turning backwards, right? So I'll take another look at that, and I'll realize, oh, I should have pushed in here. Push that in. Now I'm drilling the correct direction. Okay, so if you're ever having difficulty drilling, just be sure that you've got it in the right direction. Before drilling, make sure that your workpiece is secure, okay? So I'm going to go grab a clamp. I'll be right back. Okay, got a trigger clamp here. I'm going to clamp my block of wood to the tabletop. We'll discuss clamps in another video. Okay, now I've got my workpiece securely mounted. Now, I'm going to take my drill. I'm going to make sure I got it going in the right direction. And then I'm going to, again, push downward pressure here. Downward pressure on the drill. Not too much. Let the drill do the work. I'm going to squeeze. I'm going to make sure I'm lined up. I don't want the drill at some odd angle, so I'm going to position myself. I'm going to position myself where I can see the drill bit is lined up properly. And then I'm going to squeeze that trigger again with that index finger. And I'm going to drill into the wood. Okay. Now, it's not necessary to reverse the drill to make the drill come back out. You simply want to squeeze the trigger again so that it's spinning, and then you just want to draw the drill back out. Okay? What are some other features on this drill? Okay, so this drill also has an LED light that lights up to help you see, just like the impact driver. We already talked about it, has the forward and reverse switch. Now, let's look up here. There's a 1 and a 2, okay? Basically, that is 2 more speed controls. Again, this is a variable speed so that as I press the trigger, I can turn it slowly. And the more I depress the trigger, press it farther, speeds up, continue to press. I can make it go faster. So in general, when I'm drilling small diameter holes, I want a faster rotation at faster RPM. Drilling larger holes, I want to slow it down, okay? We have charts for that, and we can help you get that better, okay? But this gives me an additional speed control as well. So number 1, number 2 is going to give a higher speed. Number 1, when I fully depress it, it's just going to be a lower total speed. So there's in position 1, all the way depressed. There's position 2, all the way depressed. Okay, it's a little more speed control. Now, one last thing here I want to show you on the chuck itself. You'll always want to use the chuck with it pointed in the little drill bit arrow here. This little collar here can rotate. And you can see I can change it to different numbers, right? I want to make sure when I'm drilling that I'm always lined up with the drill, the little drill icon there, the little drill picture, right? The numbers are for clutches, clutch settings, okay? If I were to use this as a driver, and I can, so as I said before, it's primarily for drilling holes, but I can certainly put one of those impact driver bits into this chuck and tighten it up, okay? And now these numbers on this drill allow me to have different clutch settings. What a clutch setting means is if I'm trying to drive a screw into a piece of wood and I don't want to drive it in too far, or I don't want to damage it, I can use this clutch to sort of give me more control, right? So if I take out that screw that I had put in earlier, all right. So if I put this on the lightest setting, if I put that on the lightest setting, the number 1 setting, you can see as I start to put the screw in, as I start to put it in, you see what happens? It stops turning. Now the drill motor itself, okay, so you can see I'm going to try to attempt to drive this screw back in. Now I have that clutch setting on the number 1 setting. Okay, so that's the lightest clutch setting. If I attempt to drive that screw in, and you can see I'll squeeze the trigger, you can hear the motor turning, but you hear that clicking sound. That's the clutch is allowing it to slip. So no rotation is happening down here. The motor itself internally is turning, but inside this clutch, inside right here in this clutch, it's allowing it to slip, okay? Like the clutch in an automobile. So if I want to drive that a little bit deeper, I'm going to rotate. I'm going to try setting number 5, okay? And you can see I'm going to be able to drive the screw in a little bit deeper. Deeper. It's going to meet a certain amount of resistance. And now you can see it's met enough resistance that the screw will no longer be driven in. And I'm turning the motor itself. And you can hear that clicking sound. There's no rotation down here anymore, okay? If I want to continue to drive that screw a little bit deeper, I could go to setting number 10, and I could resume drilling. You can see I'm getting rotation again, and when it hits a certain rotation or resistance, I'm going to hear that clicking. So again, the motor is turning when I press the trigger, but there's no rotation on the screw itself. It's slipping. By design, it's slipping inside of here so that I don't drive that screw in too deep. So that's the additional feature on the drill is this variable chuck, okay, variable clutch. All right, so I can loosen that, take that back out. Okay, take care of these tools. If you ever notice a particular strange smell, like something burning, if you ever notice maybe the tool feels like it's getting too warm, or it's making an unusual noise that you're not familiar with, please let your instructor know, right? We want to take good care of our tools so that they last for a long time. So if anything ever seems wrong, something seems broken, has a funny smell, feels too hot, or something feels loose, let us know, and we'll make sure that the tool is still operational so that you don't get hurt and we don't hurt the tool itself. Okay. Remember, impact driver is for driving screws, primarily for driving screws, and the drill is primarily used for drilling holes.